Hello and welcome to this session on how to secure your unstructured patient data from ransomware at Petabyte-Scale. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's session, though, there are a couple of housekeeping items that'll help you get the most out of this event today. And first, we want this to be an informative event, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. That's also the place to let us know where you're logging in from, as a lot of you have already been doing. I'm seeing folks from Irmo, South Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia, the East Coast, Virginia, Mississippi, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Chicago, North Carolina, Madison, Wisconsin. You are all over today, and we are so happy that you could join us today from wherever you are. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. A browser refresh should fix most audio, video, slide advancement issues you have. If that doesn't work, though, let us know in the Q&A, and we'll provide further technical assistance. Okay, next I want you to take a look at the handouts section of your webinar control panel, which you'll see right next to the questions tab. There you'll find a number of great resources. I'd especially like to call your attention today to 3 important handouts from Rubrik that have a wealth of information on protecting sensitive data. Also in the handouts section, you'll find a link to the Gorilla Guide book club where you can get access to Actual Tech Media's huge library of printed resources on technology topics. In that handout section, you'll also find a link to the Actual Tech Media Events Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. See what we've got in there. We got a bunch of great sessions coming up, and I would bet one or more of them will strike your fancy. Okay, finally, at the end of this webinar, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Now, you do have to be in attendance during the entire event to qualify for the prize, and the official terms and conditions of that drawing can be found in the handouts section. All right, so that takes care of all that stuff. With that out of the way, let's get to today's fantastic content. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our presenter today, Zubin Talavia with Rubrik. Zubin has got some great stuff for you, so it's time to be paying attention. Zubin, you have the mic. Take it away.
All right, thank you. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, folks. I am Zubin Talavia. I'm the advisory SE for healthcare and the East for Rubrik. And I've been the next 45 minutes, I'll be going through a few talking points regarding how Rubrik helps you kind of get control over your unstructured data and protect you from ransomware. So for the agenda today, I'm going to have 5 topics, right? Most of them is I'm going to spend a lot of time in the demo, but I'm also going to have a few slides beforehand to kind of explain and give you an idea of how what Rubrik can do for you. So we'll talk about security challenges, a different way of looking at it, protecting unstructured data with Rubrik. We'll do the demo, then we can talk a little bit about resources and next steps. And if there are any questions and answers, we can definitely address them as well. So what we see in healthcare today, it's changed from where it was, several years ago. It's still all about patient care, obviously, but when we talk to a lot of healthcare customers, we kind of see this transformation going on how these services are delivered, how the supervision of patients is happening, and how can hospitals provide outstanding patient care. The patient portals for communications are being opened up. Thanks to the pandemic, a lot of these were accelerated, right? Telehealth, which was kind of on the fringe, has now become mainstream. There's a lot of work going on, a lot of features in remote patient monitoring using AI and ML algorithms. A lot of wellness applications are being kind of put out by the health institutions because it makes a lot more sense to do preventative care than actually take care of a patient after the fact. A lot of clinical apps are being modernized, are being updated, are being made, are also being transformed, moved to the cloud. And in general, overall, the transformation journey is ongoing. I assume you folks are in the same boat. You have at least part of it, or if not all of it, going on in the same healthcare institutions as well. Now, what we also see in healthcare is the flip side of it, which is an extreme, relentless barrage of cyber attacks. Right, 73% of the total data breaches in the first half of last year alone were targeted specifically towards healthcare providers. In 2021, about 77% of those ransomware attacks also included a data leak threat. That's 10% higher than the previous year. Obviously, when you get hit by ransomware, God forbid, the price tag is pretty high. An average about 10 million, but I've seen customers go upwards of 20, 30, 40 million. And the worst aspect of this is you're basically putting patients' life at risk because hospital centers are shutting down and the care is being interrupted. I was personally involved in a situation a few years ago at a hospital chain where they were hit by ransomware, and they had to shut down their email, telephones, and literally they had to send someone to Best Buy to buy walkie-talkie so they could communicate. And that really brought reality home to how this can hit you. Now, obviously, you have your structured data, you have your, in infrastructure, you have a whole wide variety of different applications, but 80% of your data is unstructured. 80%. Yes, you will have your Epic and your Meditech and your Cerner databases, but a majority of your data that's in your enterprise that's being created every day, which is about 90% of that, is unstructured. Okay. Oftentimes, what we also notice is it's nuanced, right? It's got different file types, what's the content in it, there's millions and billions of files, right? You're talking about lots and lots of files. Oftentimes, also customers have several NAS vendors, right? Sometimes they have Windows file shares, they have Isilon, they have NetApp, they might have a third-party Synology or some other vendor. And there's no ability to search across a multi-vendor environment. Every vendor has its own tools and they don't talk to each other. So the questions that you should be asking yourself is, if all my unstructured data is lost, what would be the impact to my business? And with ransomware, you also have to always assume that if you get hit by it, your data is exfiltrated. And if that data is out, what kind of data has been stolen? Is it PII, HIPAA, PCI information, or is it something that you don't care about? So these are certain factors that have to be considered that you may not have thought about in the past, but now with ransomware being at a heightened at a pace, you have to start thinking about all that. Now, in the past, a lot of vendors supported a protocol called NDMP, Network Data Management Protocol. And that protocol was great when you had smaller NASs, and single, vendors. But NDMP has several limitations. A couple of them being that every NDMP implementation is vendor specific. So if you're an Isilon, you're stuck, that's one implementation. NetApp has its own implementation. Third-party NAS has its own implementation. And they don't talk to each other. Also, the other piece to it is like NDMP does not scale when you have data growth that's exploding. Your billions and billions of files with a very deep directory structure, NDMP, protecting your data with NDMP and backing it up using NDMP does not scale, and you cannot meet your SLAs. Okay. Now, you have to ask yourself, is your data an easy target? Right? I mean, a lot of things you may not consider for a data center is, if you have an aging infrastructure, you'll probably have open protocols like, NAS and NFS, SMS, SMB, which are inherently, insecure. There might be miscommunication, misconfigurations there, and then it's not designed for bad guys behind the firewall. All this is assuming that you're safe within your four walls, but not anymore. With ransomware, you also have to assume that you are not safe anymore with having no security for your unstructured data. Now, also the other question you ask is, how effective can you search an entire NAS environment and find the data quickly? It's like finding a needle in a haystack. So you need tools, you need some easy way to find that data. For a lot of you folks have Epic as your EMR, EHR system. And Epic honor roll is something that is a very proud accomplishment for many healthcare institutions. Also, it's got a lot of money you can save if you meet the Epic honor roll requirements. Now, Epic honor roll requirements, recently Epic came out with some new requirements where they said, hey, you can't just use snap and replicate, right? We can't do that anymore for your web blob data. It's okay if you want it for quick recoveries, but you need backups, even if you have deployed RAID or data replication. Because if you get a corruption, you're basically replicating the corruption to different copies, and that's not acceptable for that honor roll. So for Epic customers who have not bothered about that in the past, now this becomes a bigger issue because it's got dollar value associated with it. So let's switch gears and talk about how a modern approach to securing that data NAS would work like, right? So the whole point over here is to kind of make sure that we protect the NAS data efficiently and at scale, right? Whether you have 100 terabytes or you have 5 petabytes. You want to use a model that creates a truly resilient copy of your data that you can be assured that you can recover from. And we have SLAs or lifecycle policies that allow you to do that. And then you also need to arm yourself with the right tools and services to get a business back online faster. Let's say if you were hit by a ransomware attack, you need to know what's been impacted, where the impact is, what kind of data it is, so that you can recover that data back online and be up and running within days and not weeks. So what I'm talking to you about now is a feature within Rubrik. It's called NAS Cloud Direct. And NAS Cloud Direct is a very efficient way to protect your web blob, any PACS systems, any unstructured data at massive scale, right? We can easily protect billions of files, PBs of data by leveraging ultra-fast custom-built drivers. And obviously, if you have any other arrays like Cumulo or FlashBlade or any other NAS array, it doesn't matter. Our engine will efficiently use an incremental 4-hour approach. We will reduce the backup times. You can quickly search for files across the entire portfolio of unstructured data that you may have, whether it may be in different systems, right? You may have started Isilon, you may have acquired a hospital that has Cumulo, or you may have a mixture of Isilon and NetApp. It doesn't matter. We are vendor agnostic, and we can easily search for data anywhere. Obviously, moving that data and keeping it, you can use snap and replicate, but as you saw, that's not a most effective or cost-effective solution. And a lot of customers, specifically for healthcare systems, for PACS and web blobs and unstructured data, are moving to the cloud or looking at either private or public cloud for data that they just need to keep for regulatory reasons. Okay, so we can effectively move that data efficiently at scale to any of the private or public cloud vendors of choice. How does that work, right? So we use Rubrik, obviously, under the hood. We provide immutability and security for your data. Rubrik has an immutable file system. It has built-in features like TOTP, multi-vector authentication, intelligent data lock, retention locks, two-person rule that basically provide you that secure layers of defense around your data. We can kind of also provide you with visibility into your data, right? So we can kind of detect if you have been hit by ransomware. And if you've been hit by ransomware, you can immediately tell you what systems have been impacted and what your blast radius is, right? And then we can also provide you, using tools like threat hunting, give you an ability and sensitivity discovery. We can not only tell you what kind of data was exposed, so you can remediate it, but we can also find indicators of compromise. So when you recover it, we basically are able to recover to a clean point in time, and you are not reinfecting yourself with malware again. And we work across unstructured and structured data. As you can see in the middle here, we have protection for all VMs, hypervisors, NAS, SaaS platforms like 365, and even for cloud workloads like Azure and AWS. So let's talk a little bit more about how this works. Let's kind of peel the cover a little bit. Okay. So what NAS Cloud Direct is basically just on-prem, it's just a stateless virtual machine, right? There's no infrastructure that you need. There's no storage that you need for it. We give you a stateless VM that you then connect using, protocols like NFL protocols to connect to your NetApp, your storage, Cumulo, or any generic NAS. All this is managed by a Rubrik Security Cloud, which is just acting as an orchestrator for the data. The stateless VM will then efficiently read the data from your NAS, whether it's PACS, Web Blobs, unstructured file systems, and move it efficiently to the public or private cloud. All this allows you to enable protection for your NAS data at infinite scale. We can leverage on-prem storage that you have, if you have some already, or you can use, go to the cloud, and you can use retention lock to ensure the data is safe. It's not modified, it's not deleted, no one's changing anything on it. It's an independent, incremental, forever approach. So we don't need any reliance on features like SnapDiff, change list APIs. What that gives you is the ability to, leverage protocols that are not vendor specific. Nowhere am I talking about NDMP here. Nowhere am I talking about you have to use NetApp or you have to use Isilon. It doesn't matter. We will work across different vendors, and we have an independent, incremental, forever approach that kind of bypasses the need for those specific features. Okay. So digging a bit deeper on how that works is, this is frankly, that's the question we get the most, right? How does it work? How do you get this efficiency with such performance? So this is possible because we have a purpose-built client, right, in which we can scan, index, and move the data in parallel and as fast as physically possible. We start scanning any NAS system using, in parallel with multi-threading enabled. And this intelligent indexing of all your data along with the latency aware file movement allows you to achieve that peak performance. We can dynamically do resource throttling, and it does not impact production. So you can say goodbye to your backup windows, because after your first full, we'll be just doing changes going forward. So if you have billions and billions of files with tons of data, yes, you got to go through the pain of doing the first full, but even that is fast because we can parallelize it. But after that, it's just changes. And that is efficient and very fast compared to scanning your file system all over again. Always keep in mind that the backups are immutable. They cannot be modified. They're incremental forever. And they're connected directly to the shares and exports. So there is no mount that is needed. Okay, there's no mount. We're not doing NFS mounts, things like that. And the files are grouped to reduce your cost. We basically are grouping the files into a single put request into the archive tiers or onto on-prem data store to make it more efficient, reduce any cloud costs that may occur due to that. So when it's time to recover, NAS Cloud Direct allows you to exactly find what you need, and I can show that to you in the demo. But we can easily find what you need down to the file level, and you can recover anywhere, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, back to the original source, or to a different location or target. Finally, we also have a way of actually getting visibility into your data. You know why you need that? So you can act on it. You can discover all your data just by scanning your NAS devices, right? What you see here, and I can show in the demo, is you can see how your data is behaving, right? All data tells a story. And you can locate data quickly within the enterprise, if it's on-site or in the cloud, and you can find out, okay, how much data is really being used actively as opposed to never being touched, right? You can kind of use filters, you can do easy retrieval, and you can either directly archive it if you wish, if you're not going to use it again, or you can just do regular backups on a daily basis. So basically what you can do now is make data-driven decisions and basically get the freedom, from, storage vendors, right? You're not tied into a storage. You don't have to replicate Isilon to an Isilon. You can take Isilon, move it to any other target you want, and go to the cloud. We allow you to do that and help, and thus reduce your TCO. All right, it's time for a demo. So I'll switch on to the demo, and after the demo, we can go back and talk a little bit about the resources and any additional questions that you may have. All right, so you folks can see my demo environment. And what you're seeing here is Rubrik Security Cloud. It's a SaaS platform that Rubrik offers, and it's a true single pane of glass for all your for your entire environment. Right? It doesn't matter if you have stuff on-prem, whether you have data in the cloud in different instances, AWS, Azure, or GCP. Doesn't matter if you have Exchange on-prem, Exchange in M365, OneDrive, SharePoint. Everything can be managed from one single location. You can set policies, you can report on events, you can monitor it all from one spot. But what we're going to talk about today is our cloud, NAS Cloud Direct portion. So let's go into NAS Cloud Direct and talk a bit about it. Okay. So what do you see here on the screen, right? A bunch of different clusters. These are different clusters that are on-prem. Some of them are in the cloud, some of them are virtual, as you can see. But we also have a NAS Cloud Direct virtual machine, as I was talking about. And quickly going into that, you would notice that it brings up a view that focuses only on your unstructured data, right? So the first thing you want to do when you come to the screen, if you have NAS Cloud Direct, you add a system. Very easy to add a system, right? You just pick from a generic NAS or SMB to NetApp, to Pure, to any Isilon that you may have. You type in the details, maybe a name, IP address, maybe 10.100.5.5, 5.5. You have the root name, and obviously, if you're under the right one, I haven't done it, I'm just showing you how to do it. We will actually, go out and discover it. But once you discover the system, it's pretty much it. We automatically will go out, we'll discover the shares, and you will be able to see those systems added here. Give it a few minutes, we'll actually show you automatically go and discover all the shares that are on that device. Right, whether it's whether it's Isilon or whether it's NetApp, for example. These are the two systems that I have here. Now, once you have the systems, once you have discovered the systems and you can see the shares, you go ahead and you can create a policy. Creating a policy is very, very simple. You literally have to select whether you want a backup policy or archive. Let's choose backup. I'll just give it a name. Okay. And then you can specify, hey, when do you want to run the backup, right? Okay, what's my window? 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. I can click on that to change it. I can also figure out when I want to run it. Hey, daily, twice a day, weekly, monthly, yearly. And I can also select the destination. Now, by selecting destination, you can see we have a choice of going to multiple locations like Azure, AWS, Google, other S3, NFS. And we also have what we call Rubrik Security Cloud. Security Vault, Cloud Vault, which is our own tenant in Azure that's immutable, logically air-gapped, and more secure because, to get into that Rubrik Cloud Vault, you would need your keys as well as keys from Rubrik, which makes it almost impossible to get to. So once you choose the location, let's say if I were to choose AWS, for example, I could give it a name. I could access key, secret key, and I can basically save that and actually get there. Or I could basically go to an pre-existing location that I have already created that you can see here, right? And then depending on the tier that I've created here, I can basically select the archive tier. This is actually the bucket that I have in US West, and then go to any of the tiers with that Glacier offers, right? Whether it's deep archive, whether it's standard, whether it's one zone or instant recovery. Depending on what you want to do with the data, if you're just using it for archive purposes and you don't really, want to get to it very quickly, you can just choose deep archive. And if you want to add in different versions, you can kind of do plus, or you can just save it. And you can, then that's it. That creates a policy. As you can see, we have created about 4 or 5 policies here. Once I've selected the policies, I go back to my systems. I have discovered the shares. I can literally go in there and I can choose the policy that I just created or create a new one. Okay, that's it. It's that simple, folks. We auto discover the shares. We don't have to realize, obviously in a system, you may have hundreds and hundreds of shares. You don't have to worry about, typing it in. You can protect them at a full level. You can go down to the individual shares and, protect an individual share with different policies if you wanted to. You saw how easy it was to create that policy. And once you run it, you basically have to select, the policy and off it goes. Now, if you read any like backup exclusions, like, hey, I don't want to back up log files. I don't want to back up, any of the zip files. You can kind of, do that here. You can also view the activity of that particular policy right here, or you can kind of go across and look at all the activities for all the other policies that you may have in the environment. Again, filtering it by different types, by location, by status. And once the policy is completed, so example, I've completed this backup policy, I can kind of either rerun it. You can see what the error was. If there's or any, you can see the stats of that particular policy, or I can kind of browse. I can that particular policy run and see what I backed up. Now you can see, for example, that this policy backed up on this particular server, the CIFS share, and it had these file shares, about 5,000 items in that file shares. I could restore that entire file share if I wanted to, right? I could restore it to that same system or type in a system. I could restore it to a different share. I can give it a path. And I can also notify, I can send a notification email off to any participant or recipient who's interested in it. All I do is start restore. Or I can kind of go in, I can crack open the share, I can kind of go down to individual items. And let's say, my CEO or CIO really wanted this document. I can literally go in and choose the individual document and follow the same process to restore it. Very easy. Finding that needle in a haystack when you have millions and millions of files is godsend, right? You just don't, otherwise you'll have no idea how to find it. Because 9 times out of 10, when you get requests restores for a specific item, many of them don't know where the file is. They know what the file name is, but they may not know where the file is residing. So it's very difficult to find it out. You can also search for data across, different shares by typing in a few, hey, I want to first look for this file name, and the file name is, .pdf. And I know it's going to be very generic, but I can kind of do that, and it'll kind of tell me all the PDF files that are there. Okay. And I can say, aha, that's what I want. I want a credit report. I go to that one, restore. Boom. 2-3 clicks. I was able to find that one file. Picture having you do this if you don't have a tool like this, right? Across your enterprise with different arrays and different systems. Now, obviously, we also have reports that you can kind of run. So we provide you certain reports that you can kind of use to customize and say how much is backing up, what kind of data do I want it on, which systems I want to run this on, and you can kind of see all the information here. So I could pick one system here and you kind of see that particular system, see the activities for that system. I can go in here, I can browse it, I can rerun it. But I could also go into that particular policy, for example, that I'd run. For example, this one here. And I can kind of, actually, if I go to the systems, and it'll be better if I show you that way. So I could go to the system for this particular share. You can see over here, and there are a whole bunch of different options I can do here. So I can actually restore right from here, which will take me to the same screen I showed you earlier. Or I can kind of run this in archive job and say, you know what, I don't want this data to back up anymore. I just want to archive it once off, and I can pick this policy. I can choose archive, pick a policy that I can use for archiving, and be done with it. Now, we also have a tool which we call Data Discover that I'm talking to you about. This tool comes with Cloud Direct. And in my opinion, it's awesome, right? Because what it tells you without even running any backups, just while it scans the system, right? It just all it does do is you point the system to it, it'll scan all the shares and it'll provide this information. And it just tells you, how your data is behaving, right? When was it last accessed? Okay, so this data, okay, within the first 30 days, I had about 4 petabytes of that was accessed, but there was some data that wasn't accessed for over a year, right? Last access within the last 6 months was about 5 GB. So with this, you can kind of, very, confidently kind of make an assumption that, okay, this is important data that I need to maybe keep on like warm storage or something so I can retrieve the data quickly, right? As opposed to if you have a larger value, a number in, like, let's say last access over a year or even worse, over greater than a year. And by the way, you can change these numbers, right? So I can go in and I say, well, I want to change this to, more than 30 days. I want to make it 10 years or whatever it is. I can do that. And it'll automatically, readjust the numbers based on the windows that you choose. But imagine if I found out that I have all this data that I've not accessed for a year, and that's like maybe, hundreds of terabytes or tens of terabytes. I could run a job just to kind of just take that data and basically just, archive it off, move it away from the system so that I don't have to back it up. I don't have a security risk of having sensitive data and being exposed because it's live on the system when I'm not even using it, right? So you could save on, headache. You can improve your security posture with that. You could also save on, storage space by actually cleaning up, your NAS systems, which, believe me, at the end of the day, it becomes like a dumping ground for everything, right? You get a NAS, it's basically going to be filled up with stuff that you may or may not ever need again. And if you have a policy where you keep the data for a year or 5 or 7 years, that thing is going to grow. And instead of having to buy more storage all the time, you could use tools like this to basically, figure out, okay, do I really need all this data to be sitting on primary storage, or can I move it off? And once you do that, you can save on space as well. So effectively, what I've done in the past, like maybe 10, 15 minutes, I've just shown you very quickly, right, how easy it is to use NAS Cloud Direct. It's a virtual machine that you just stand on-prem. So the only infrastructure you really need is a virtual machine. The virtual machine scales up from each one virtual machine can scale from 4 to 5 petabytes of data. So it's a pretty efficient in how it does it. So if you have, let's say, like 10 petabytes of data you want to move, you might need 2 to 3 VMs, but that's it on-prem. And then you can target any cheap or deep archive, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, and we'll efficiently move the data. One of my customers who was local to the New England area was able to move 11 petabytes of their PACS images from on-prem to Google Code Archive, and they will do that in about 3 weeks. Okay, that's pretty good. Another customer who's has a research company, and they were able to back up their NAS, which was about 2 petabytes of data, and it was taking them days to back it up with the previous system. They were able to back it up after the first full within like 11 hours because of the way our NAS Cloud Direct scales. So just to recap, NAS Cloud Direct is an offering within Rubrik that is focused only on web blobs, unstructured data, PACS systems. It is a tool in your arsenal to basically give you a way to quickly back up tons and tons of NAS unstructured data efficiently and fast. And then using tools within Rubrik that we can cover in a separate session, like ransomware remediation, discovery, sensitive data discovery, which you've seen, which I've shown you, in the view here. We can easily kind of scan your data to find out what open sensitive files are, what kind of data it was, and what policies that it impacted, whether it's, CCPA, HIPAA, PCI, PII, and also give you a way to find any malware in your system that's there, quarantine that part of it so that when you go back to restore it, you're not reinfecting yourself by restoring something that's corrupt. You can clean it up. You can kind of, mark it as bad, or you can kind of run your own tools to remove it before you put that into production. Hopefully, this was beneficial to you, and thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But before I end, I just want to point out a couple of resources that would be of interest to you. So some of the resources that I want to just talk to you about quickly is if you go to our website, and I don't want to do this in presentation mode, I'll just quickly show you, is if you go to the resource, if you go to Google and just type in Rubrik NAS Cloud Direct, you'll go to this NAS Cloud Direct page. On that page, you can kind of, you click on something to have a more personalized demo. Someone can contact you for that. There's a solution brief on NAS Cloud Direct, how it works, what are the, things you can do with it. And there's also an ebook on protecting unstructured data and how we can do it and the best practices associated with that. Okay. With that, I would like to end, and I would thank you for your time. And I appreciate you taking about 45 minutes of your precious time to hear me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubin, for that awesome presentation, and especially for the in-depth demo of of how it works. My wife actually works in the healthcare industry, and this is the kind of thing that they are always concerned about and always having to deal with. So we really appreciate your time and that presentation. So that is a wrap for the session today. But we do have one more piece of business before we cut you loose, and it is the Amazon gift card prize drawing. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, that you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible. And the winner for today's $250 Amazon gift card is Aaron Kumar from Texas. Congratulations, Aaron. We'll be in touch very soon to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik for making this event possible. And especially, I want to thank you, the attendees, for spending a little bit of your day with us. I hope you think it's time well spent. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.